channel. Over 20 years ago I had an idea of opening up an Apple retro museum. I displayed this on my website to see if there was any interest. I had no genuine offers or interest in the museum other than one young man pre-COVID who got in contact with me. I don't recall actually following up his initial inquiry. At the start of 2025 I saw on Facebook that someone was opening up a Mac museum in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne. So I got my ticket, found the route to the destination. You mean this one? No, that involves tolls. You're cheap. Okay, that one. I got into Melissa, drove down the freeway to Somerville, and found the car that gave me the right directions. Parking was no problem either. After viewing this new museum, I sat down with the owner and asked him a few questions.
We're recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Very good. Far away.
Okay. So how did you get into Apple Macs?
I started out on my dad's SE30 when I was 5 years old. That's 1990. And he had it on his desk for desktop publishing and copywriting, upgraded the typewriter. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to get my hands on his machine at an early age where I'd play some games and work with Super Paint to draw some pictures. That was my start. That was 5 years old, yeah.
Did you use any Apple computers at school?
Yes, but my experience with Apple computers at school came after the fact from when I started with them at home. So at school we had a Macintosh Classic which came in via the, I think it was the Apples for Schools program with the Coles dockets that you'd cash in. And yeah, we were fortunate enough at the school to get a Mac Classic, and there was also an Apple IIe which was at school too, which I never really used, but the Mac Classic was in my classroom, so I was lucky.
From the mid-70s and throughout the 80s, Apple pushed their Apple II range to the education market, which included the Apple IIe and the Apple IIgs. The Macintosh was introduced in the mid-80s, which revolutionized desktop publishing. Did you program anything on the Macs?
No. So only more recently have I got into any sort of programming type of stuff, which has really been limited to some basic HTML or PHP. But back then, no, it didn't even occur to me that that's something that I could do. Sorry, I won't say programming, but I once used ResEdit to change the Welcome to Macintosh startup screen. So that's as far as I got.
By looking around, Matthew seemed to have a lot of computers in his collection. When did your passion with Apple computers make you start collecting?
As I hit about 15 years old, so year 2000, I wanted to start having a look at some of the stuff that I'd seen in catalogues and product guides as I'd been growing up, and I wanted to start getting my hands on some of that. And I thought, well, I'll start having a look through the Trading Post and seeing what I can find there, and really just went from there. So that was, yeah, at 15.
What was your first own Apple computer?
The first, the first computer I had myself, first Apple I had myself, was a Mac Classic, which was a machine that Dad had bought as a second computer, and that ended up on my desk when I was about, would have been about 6 years old, I reckon. So the machine was still, reasonably new and capable at that stage, and I had that set up in my room so I could play around on some things myself. So again, really fortunate at that age to have a computer of my own to do something with. That was, if we said that was my first opportunity to have my own computer. A little further down the track, when I had actually saved up, I was able to buy a 7200, which was the first Mac that I saved up and bought myself when I was looking for something a little more powerful.
There were a lot of computers out on display, a lot to touch and explore, so you can get a hands-on experience on older Apple computers. How How did the Mac Museum idea come about?
The idea for Mac Museum came about when I wanted to get my hands on or experience stuff that I hadn't yet come across, knew that other people had. So I had got in touch with a few people to try and come and visit their collections, but understandably, people probably didn't want some random guy coming into their house to explore their stuff. So the idea for Mac Museum was sort of born out of that idea of thinking, I'm probably not the only one that wants to play around with this stuff or get to see some of this stuff. So I thought it'd be great to be able to build up a collection and then put it on display for other people to enjoy as well.
All computers are nicely laid out, usually set up with the period correct hardware and software, and even sometimes working. There are a number of items here. Just curious, how many Apples do you have in your collection?
So I've got, I'd say, around 200 computers. There's probably close to 100 monitors. There's dozens of iPods and iDevices. There's hundreds and hundreds of just Apple-related bits and pieces. So yeah, amongst all that, there's quite a few things.
So how many Apples are out on display?
There's about 80 computers that are on display in various ways, in various forms. There's about 20 to 30 which are out on display. We'll call them as sort of main exhibits, and about half of those are available for people to come and sit down and play around with. And then there's a number which are up on shelves for people to have a look at as well.
What is your favourite Apple computer?
Favourite Apple computer? I reckon this is probably... Favourite Apple computer is probably driven by nostalgia and personal connection in the past. So I'd have to say probably my Macintosh SE30, which was the one that I started out with. It's very hard for you to go past one of the ones that you've had personal experience with and have a personal connection to.
Do you have a top 5 list of your favourite Macs?
My top 5 list. So the SE30 would be at the top for the nostalgia factor. In fact, I'd say all of these have some sort of connection to my past. The SE30 would be number 1. Second on the list would be an LC575. And the reason for that one is back in the day, which was when I was using Dad's LC475, I always admired the all-in-one nature of the 575, which was almost like a 475, but all together, and had the CD-ROM drive. So the LC575 would be number 2. Number 3 would be the LC475 with Macintosh color display. And again, that one was one of the ones I got to use in our family home. Number 4 would be the PowerMac G4 gigabit Ethernet, the dual 450. And that would have to have the matching 17-inch studio display, the LCD, which is another one of the machines that I had on my desk personally. The early 2000s, that one took quite a few weeks of saving up my salary to get that one. And number 5 favorite Mac would be a Color Classic. It's similar to the LC575, that all-in-one with color screen, no CD-ROM of course, but just a really cute little form factor. And I have to say, since I got my hands on one in the last couple of years, have I realized how underpowered they are. Straight from the factory. So I might have a Mystic upgrade at some point down the track.
Then I thought I'd hit him with this question that would be hard to answer. By chance, is there a least favourite Apple computer?
Least favorite, oh gosh. Let me think about that one. Least favorite. If I have to pick a least favorite machine, I actually have to say that the 7200 series is one that I find just sort of really unappealing. Now, you might cast back to the fact I mentioned that as one of the machines I'd bought. In fact, the first one I paid my own money to buy. I'm not too sure if there's something sort of subconscious there which is causing me to answer that way, but I just find them really kind of boring, to be honest. So it's, I'm sure there are people out there that I've offended by saying that, but yeah, any of them in that sort of form factor, I'm just, yeah, don't get me too excited. We've got one right here, yeah, so yes. Still got to have it on display though. Still can't let my bias prevent people from seeing what's out there in the line.
Do you have any plans for any expansion of the Mac Museum?
Absolutely, yeah. So what I've realised is that once you start laying things out in a nicely presentable way, you quickly run out of space. So expansion would hopefully at some point see a mezzanine or a second floor added, a second level added to the current location. I think it would be great at one point to be able to possibly split things up into eras as well. Maybe a post-jobs return upstairs with all the iDevices and the coloured machines, and then pre-jobs return maybe downstairs with a lot of beige and Apple stuff, so Apple II stuff, Apple III. There's plans for expansion on what takes place at the museum as well, so more than just being a place for people to come and see the computers, but further plans for events and functions and celebrations, repair services. There's a long list of ideas and future plans there as well.
Do you think there are certain generations of people who have an interest in the museum, for example, Gen X, Gen Y, etc.?
Yes, I think there are generations that connect to these machines in different ways, but one of the most prominent things that they'll connect with is what they grew up with, the nostalgia factor. So that's a huge driver. That being said, though, I've found that there are some millennials that have come through and they have loved the beige stuff. They've been really keen to explore the Apple II range, for example. So I think for most part people are going to be connected with the stuff that they grew up with, but there are exceptions to that rule as well, which has been great to see. It's been really good to see, particularly some of the younger people coming through want to appreciate and explore the stuff which is the early days of Apple, some of the origins of this stuff.
Do you have any handheld devices out on display?
Currently we've got Newtons, we've got a nice wall of Newtons displayed. There's also a couple of other items such as a quick take camera. Soon not too far down the track, iPods will be on display, and early iPhones, which are certainly starting to enter the sort of the vintage era now as well. So there's a mix of some older stuff which is available now to look at, and then more coming down the track.
Do you have any battery bombed Macs?
Oh gosh, I'm happy to say that I don't think there's any Macs that have been battery bombed on my watch. So there's machines that have come in and already had the symptoms of having been battery bombed, unfortunately, or the results of being battery bombed. So I've got a workshop here where I try to repair and get things in good shape again. I try not to have anything that would end up in the bin, so to my best efforts I'd try to recover anything even if it has been battery bombed. There's quite a few machines which have come in various ways, and I've caught them just in time. So there's been the evidence that the batteries are about to about to let loose, and I've been able to save them just in time. So there's been a few close calls as well.
How much is too much collecting? So is it inspiring that you see other people collecting?
I think it's inspiring to know that there's the interest out there and people want to see this stuff. So it's great learning about other people's collections too. You know, I am nowhere near knowing everything about Apple stuff. So connecting with other people that are out there like you and hearing tidbits about, you know, particular machines, which helps build my knowledge, and having people out there that I can call on to say, hey, I've got this problem, what do you think? You know, why have I got this, you know, this boot loop on my LC2, for example, and then, you know, being directed to a particular component on the board that could be the problem. That's great. So I'm never going to know everything about every Apple product out there. So it's a great community, and what I have found as well is that for the most part, everyone's supportive of each other in trying to keep these things going and build up people's knowledge, which is awesome. So I think it's a really great community to be a part of, and it's great to see that it's actually a community which is growing too.
So do you feel like you want to keep the retro community going for future generations?
Absolutely. I think there's so much history which is at risk of being lost if people don't carry forward the anecdotes about if we focus on the Apple things, the anecdotes of Apple's journey in the early days, and the days where things were a little more gloomy in the 90s, and then, you know, that reinvigoration in the late 90s and noughties when Jobs was back at Apple. That stuff is at risk of being lost. And unfortunately, it is just the case as well that a lot of the hardware is at risk of being physically lost as well, because the stuff breaks down, and when things break, people tend to put things in the bin. So making it known that there are people that want to look after these things and bring them back to good health is important, to make sure that the younger generations get to experience this and get to know about, you know, where all the tech came from, you know, earlier on.
Do you feel bad that somebody actually throws out an Apple Mac or pulls one apart to get parts out of it?
No, I don't. I think there are instances where people, you know, you hear of people doing things maliciously or wanting to do something just to destroy it. I don't think, I think you could pick anything in life, you know, their car, their refrigerator, doing things maliciously, I don't think is great. But where you've got two machines and you can pull one apart to make one working, I think that's great. You know, cannibalization isn't a problem in that instance. Unfortunately, it is, you know, I do believe some things get to a point where they are at the end of their life and they need to be put down, unfortunately. So that happens. Thankfully, there are, you know, in a lot of instances, particularly the newer stuff, there's a lot of these things around, which doesn't mean we shouldn't, you know, look after them, but, you know, we do have the opportunity to explore and learn from some of these machines as well, which is cool.
How has your family supported you with your Mac Museum?
My family has been unreal in terms of their support. So my wife in particular has believed in my vision. She's given me all of her support to get things up and running, and this wouldn't have happened particularly without her support to get things going. So I'm very thankful for the support that she in particular has given me. My kids, they've been on board as well. I've got three kids, 12, 14 and 17, and they've given me their support as well. They've encouraged me. They've even said some of the stuff I'm doing is pretty cool. So I reckon that's a pretty good endorsement from the younger generation as well. So yes, I've had great support from my family, which has just been wonderful. Couldn't have done it without them.
So the museum is nicely laid out, computers on display, some nice touches, and upon entry to the museum you will get this friendly greeting from Matthew.
Welcome to the museum.
Check out all the details about the Mac Museum, all the links are below. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Until next time.